A deep dive now with Stephen Nagy, a professor of politics and global studies at the International Christian University in Tokyo. How much support is there in the region for a greater US presence, first of all?
Thanks, Ben, for having me. By and large, what we see is that whether it's Southeast Asia, South Korea, or other parts of the Indo-Pacific, there is a large degree of support for more U.S. engagement within the region at the security level, diplomatic level, and economic level. In fact, most of the partners within the region would like to see the United States return to the CPTPP to anchor them in the region, but also devote more of their diplomatic resources to the region to deal with some of the challenges that the region's facing.
But it's not going to go as far as becoming an Asian-style NATO, as some people have been calling it?
No, the region's too heterogeneous to establish an Asian-style NATO. And what we're seeing in lieu of an Asian-style NATO is a series of mini-lateral relationships, these problem-solving ad hoc relationships that deal with specific issues within the region. We've seen this with the Philippines, Australia, Japan, and the United States in terms of the Maritime Cooperative Activities Initiative that will deal with challenges in the South China Sea. But we've also seen this with the Camp David principles between South Korea, Japan, and the United States to deal with issues in the Korean Peninsula. It's a mini-lateral approach to problem solving within the region that's going to move forward rather than a NATO.
Stephen, is that because everyone's tiptoeing around China, which is actually painting this as provocative?
Well, I think most of the countries within the region do see China as a revisionist power, that it's assertive in the South China Sea, across the Taiwan Straits and the East China Sea. But at the same time, their biggest trading partner is China. So how do they balance this important economic relationship that is the lifeline to the region's economy and, frankly, the globe's economy, with its assertive behavior that's highly disruptive, and as Prime Minister Kishida said in his speech to the Congress, has a fundamental, if it's successful in prosecuting its strategic interests within the region, will fundamentally disrupt the region's peace and stability.
But economically, China's becoming less and less dependent on its neighbours and the rest of the world, and is managing to do things on its own and lead the way. Where do you see all this then leading?
Well, at this stage, China is still the center of the global production network, its biggest trading partners are within the region. Just with Southeast Asia, it has $1 trillion of trade. With Japan, about $390 billion of trade. It's the biggest trading partner of South Korea and Australia. It's still a critical part of the region's economy. And even as it tries to recalibrate and recenter its economy away from these economies so it's more diversified, it's still dependent on these economies for consumption, for export, and I think importantly for technologies. And this is not going to change in the short term. 5, 10, 20 years, if the Chinese government's policies are successful, maybe it will be able to recalibrate this. But at this stage, I think most analysts like myself believe that decoupling by China or decoupling from China is really not likely or possible.
So in the short term, does China need containing?
I think that's an interesting question. I think what China does need to do is work with partners within the region and really work within the current rules-based order, or if it wants to renegotiate that rules-based order, work with countries through a consultative mechanism that creates new rules that are mutually agreed upon within the region. And at this stage, we haven't seen that. With regards to the UNCLOS agreement, that's the United Nations Clause of the Seas in the South China Sea, rather than obeying the agreement that China has signed, it's ignored it, and it's continued to expand its presence in the South China Sea, threatening the Philippines, Vietnam, and other claimants within the region. This has consequences. The South China Sea represents about $5.5 trillion of trade. Any kind of kinetic conflict within the region would obviously disrupt not only the region's economy, but the global economy.
Great talking to you, Stephen. Stephen Nagy, the International Christian University, Tokyo.
Thank you.